because that's the rules that govern the estimate. We're in the city of such and such, and they require this. So I'm giving you that first, and then I'll show you all the codes from that 2015 IRC that apply to this estimate. I won't show you any codes from the 2012 IRC or the 2009 IRC, because this is the city of Frisco, and the city of Frisco requires a 2015 IRC. So all the codes I'm going to put in this estimate are 2015 IRC. You got to understand, this is all just an estimate. That's why we're supplementing before the build. It's not an actual, it's just a fantasy. Nobody knows what it's going to take. How I want to illustrate that is with your question earlier, the waste factor. Okay? One of the most common things I get. They won't give me the ridge and the starter and the waste. Or they won't give me enough waste, right? They only want to pay 5% on gable, 10% on hip. Or they won't give me, I give them the manufacturer requirements and they say that's already included in the waste, the ridge and starter. No, it's not. You know what I mean? They're wrong. But I'm wrong too. Because on my estimates, I might have like 18% waste and ridge and starter. I might have 22%. That's something really just ridiculous, right? Because I want to start higher and end up higher, right? But I'm wrong. And so are you, brother. Your waste factors are wrong too. Yours are wrong, yours are wrong. Everybody here is wrong. The adjuster's wrong, you're wrong, we're all wrong. Why are we wrong? Because we're having this argument at the wrong time. We don't know what the waste factor is going to be. You just think you do. I mean, we could use like a sophisticated waste factor calculator and come real close. We could use the Eagle View breakdown page and we could come real close, but it's just an estimate. Don't you get it? It's just an estimate because it's before the build. We're always going to go through this process before we build. So we simply don't know what it's going to take until we build. We're not going to know the exact waste factor, the exact waste, the exact amount of starter and ridge until we build. Am I wrong about that? So what I would like for you to do though, Mr. Adjuster, take it down to whatever you want to right now, because I expect you to pay for what it actually takes when we build. Because you'll do that, won't you? What do you think he's going to say? Yeah. See, when it gets built, it's no longer an estimate, it's an invoice. It's no longer hypothetical, it's actual. What do they owe? Replacement cost value. Paid when what? Incurred. Zero resistance, zero friction. Sometimes they'll ask you to send that over. When they do, do it. Redact out the prices, because the point is you're not proving prices, you're just proving coordination. You're just proving that I had to hire a subcontractor to do this job. That's it. And starts asking me questions about my estimate, right? And they're like, hey, why do you have this on here? Why do you have that on there? Why do you have that? Oh, by the way, I did forget one thing in the codes, just sorry. Go back up just a little bit. I had it up and ready for you. Like that page of the city of Frisco, remember when they say, send that to us on city letterhead, right? This is my version of that right here. I showed you Kansas's already, but city of Frisco, these are all my my code adoptions pages from all the places I've been. Now that you know it's city, next county, next state, that's why you'll see city of, city of, city of, and then county of, county of, county of, state of, state of, state of. These are the places I've been the last couple of years, right? So city of Frisco, if they said, send that over to me on the city letterhead on that Frisco, there it is. FriscoTexas.gov, bitch. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't believe me, go to that website and tell me what you find. You know what I mean? That's the city right there. And call them yourself. You know what I mean? I don't need any city letterhead. That's city letterhead, right? And that works 100% of the time. When I talked about the amendments, and I said City of Frisco requires ice and water barrier. There it is. There's the amendment, right? So I just wanted to cover that. But my first image on any estimate after the line items is the adoption page, because that's the rules that govern the estimate. We're in the city of such and such, and they require this. So I'm giving you that first, and then I'll show you all the codes from that 2015 IRC that apply to this estimate. I won't show you any codes from the 2012 IRC or the 2009 IRC because this is the City of Frisco, and the City of Frisco requires a 2015 IRC. So all the codes I'm going to put in this estimate are 2015 IRC. You know what I mean? They're not anything else. They're not some other random code. You know, so like if you get this basic stuff here, this will get you all the way home. I'm telling you. Because like you think about like electrical codes and plumbing and mechanical, these are more extensive stuff. But we don't really need those because we're usually dealing with a licensed electrician and a licensed HVAC guy, right? AC guy or plumber. And so I'm going to assume that they know that stuff because they have to. But then again, a lot of those guys don't know it, you know. But if you have this basic understanding, and when you start to question your plumber about codes, you'll know if the answer is coming back to your BS or not. You know what I mean? Because you have the basic framework. And by the way, you could go into the plumbing code after you get a little bit familiar with some of this stuff. You can go into the plumbing code and you could be deadly at it and find what you need on your own. Once you have once you get started, you'll be able to get further. Maybe you won't. Let me say it this way. I was able to get further. You know, like when I really opened my mind to some of the basics and started to see how this sort of works, how it's structured, then I could go off into something new, like something new would come at me. I'm like, I don't know anything about this code. Well, let me go find out. Let me do some research. You know what I mean? So like part of my contracts when a client hires me is, you know, part of my duties, my just job description that I put in, all the things I'm going to do, is code research, weather research, right? I'm going to do my weather research and see, you know, was there wind events or hail events there? But I'm going to find out before I even go out there what's required, right? All right, A bucket, B bucket, C bucket. That's also one of my favorite segments because most anything can be dealt with in this next deal here. And I just want to, really don't need this stuff. I could probably turn it off for now. I'll just let it roll. Okay, so A bucket, B bucket, C bucket. I started to say, you know, whenever I'm out, if I'm meeting with an adjuster, having that conversation with an inside desk adjuster, I send them my estimate, they get back with me, and they're questioning me about why do I have this here and there, right? Now, first I want to tell you, because my estimate's so far apart usually, they're usually irate when they get the estimate. You know, they're like, what the hell is this? You got all this crazy stuff on this estimate, who are you to? But what's even worse than that is when they call your client first. And they try to drive a wedge between you and your client. And they're like, hey, I don't know where you found these guys, but they got all this crazy stuff. They're not using market value prices and da 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 da.
We can get someone cheaper.
Yeah, we can help you with that, right? Way to deal with that I found is just simply let the client know what to expect.
Prior to.
You're going to get a call from an adjuster this is how they do things. This is some of the tricks they use, right? And so when the adjuster calls with that nonsense, the client's like, hey, my contractor told me you'd be calling me with that nonsense. You know what I mean? Like they're like, I knew you were going to be doing that. It's a different context then, isn't it? Different perspective. And so, you know, I'm going to let the client know education, letting them know what to expect. They're going to do this, right? When they call me back based on an estimate, it's usually they're a little bit irate. They're unreasonable. Again, though, I don't believe that they ever read my estimate. They didn't read it. They never read through that. That's right. They looked at the number. They scanned through it. They tried to find it. You see, it's hard for me to find the number at the end. You know, like trying to scroll. Where's the number? You know, which number is it? You know, so like, but in that process, things are standing out to them. All the footnotes and images and detailed descriptions, and they're like, this is crazy. This is dumb. This is one of those guys, right? I've had adjusters call me back and they're like, hey man, take all that other nonsense off and give me the line items if you want me to even review this. And I said, no, thank you. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. Do your job, man. Get in there and do your job. That's what you're paid to do. But anyway, they're just, it's not because they don't like my price. It's just because they don't want to do the work. They don't want to read even. They're too lazy to even read. Okay, so I don't expect them to. Again, it's there as a source. So when they say, to refresh your memory, why is that item in there? It's required by code. Send that to us on the city letterhead. I don't need to. It's on page 34, right? Well, the codes you're talking about, send us those codes. I don't need to. Those codes are page 35 through blah, blah, blah. Well, which the code you're talking about the flashing? Yeah, that specific code's on page such and such. Okay, well, why is it damaged? We don't see any hail damage. It doesn't say anything about hail damage. This is damage, and the nail holes are damaged. Well, send us photos of that at least. Okay, I don't need to send you any photos of that. They're on page 71 through 75. You see what I mean? It's all there in the record. I'm just pointing back to that. I'm going to win that argument, man, because I got all the proof. I got all the documentation right there to back it up. However, it doesn't always work. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're talking about this. That's why I have the A bucket, B bucket, C bucket. So, what is the A bucket? I'm going through and I'm having that conversation, and they say, why is it there? I explain it to them. Perfect example is the items that appear at the very top of the estimate. Back to that why I structure the estimate the way I do, okay? Remove, remove, remove. If there's a roof on the job, my roof is usually first. And first on the roof is remove ridge vent, remove ridge cap, remove, 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 remove. They're usually cool about removing the shingles. They have to pay you for that. You know what I mean? They have to pay you for certain things on there. When it comes to like the drip edge and things, they don't want to pay you for the removal. Like, well, we're not paying you for that item because that's already included in the tear off. And they believe their own nonsense. And I prove it to them. I do prove it to them. I do need to show them and educate them. Like, it's a thing of mine, because I don't want them to think I'm a pushover the rest of the conversation. I will prove it to them. You're wrong about that, with all due respect, right? And let me show you, because maybe you didn't know. Let me show you. If you click on the illustration, I'll do it gently and humbly and kind, professional, respectful. Let me help you. Let me help you, Mr. Adjuster. It's okay. We've all been there. You know what I mean? Well, let me show you. It says right here that it's required. You see, like you lead the horse to water, but still, nope, we don't pay for that. I'll be damned. You showed me something new. It's not included in the tear off, but we still don't pay for it. Well, that sucks. So in other words, you cannot get them to pay for the removal of the drip edge, even though you proved that it's not. You know what I mean? So what do I do with that? I guess what I'm saying is, if I start out the job, it's not like I can prove later that I have to remove the drip edge. They're not saying I don't have to remove it. They're not arguing with that. They've stipulated that. They've conceded that. You see what I mean? So what can I then prove later? There's nothing I can really do with that item, okay? I'm at a loss, man. And so you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to throw it right out the window. That's my A bucket. I'll throw it right out the window.
I've had a couple insurance companies recently trying to make me reuse the drip edge.
Sure. No, you can't do that.
Right.
You must replace it brand new.
Right.
And by the way, if it's damaged, which it would be, you know what I mean? But look, so A bucket is, no problem. Let's just get rid of it. So like in my insurance email submission, it says, I understand, and you guys have that, I understand that we are very far apart, that my estimate is much higher than yours is, okay? But I just wanted to assure you that I'm very reasonable. And I'm willing to work it out, okay? Like, if you need me to meet you back out there, I'll meet you out there. If you want to talk to me on the phone, if you need me to gather you up more documentation, whatever I can do to help, you know what I mean? But, like, I'm reasonable, and I'm willing to work it out. Now, remember I told you that they're never going to approve my whole estimate. They're always going to force me down somewhere, all right? So if I've gone ahead and conceded to you guys that I know that that's true, I already know it's coming down. Next, I would like to be able to determine where it's coming down. If I know already, if I've accepted the fact that it is going to come down, do they get to decide where it comes down, or do I? I would like to, as much as possible, control where it's going to come down. So what items do I use for the A bucket? Which items do I agree to just get rid of? It's items like that where I can't prove it later. Okay, it's not going to change. Like I can't go prove later that we have to remove the drip edge. That was never an issue. They already agreed that we have to remove it. It's just that they're saying they're not paying for it, right? And so, guys, even when written with the RFG, where it's 3 times the amount, we're still only talking about nickels and dimes here, right? So if I had to get rid of a few items here and there, and the estimate goes down, it'd be better to get rid of those items than to get rid of these more expensive items down further down in the estimate, okay? So it's almost like a psychological thing. I'd like it to be right at the top, like as low-hanging fruit, like as a sitting duck with his head out, like, take me, I'm yours, you know what I mean? Like I'm kind of setting them up for it. I kind of want them to take it, right? And because it's back to that thing where they don't ever think in terms of dollar amounts. They don't think about the dollar amounts, so they're not thinking about if I gave them back 4 items right off the top, told them to throw it out the window, they never added up the dollar amount of those 4 items. They're sitting there like, oh yeah, I'm winning. You know what I mean? I'm getting this guy to, I'm doing my job, keeping this guy honest, getting him to take off items from the estimate. They just don't get it about the amount. I mean, you just have to do it to see, but they don't get it. Okay, so the A bucket on certain items that are not so subjective, items that are just more clear cut, there's nothing I can really do later on, and use your best judgment on what those items are, okay? But those are the A bucket. I'm gonna willingly take certain items they have a problem with and throw them right out the window with 0 resistance. I say 0 resistance, but I do want to let them know I disagree with their logic. Okay, they're wrong. If we're gonna talk about Xactimate, Xactimate does not say that, bud. It's not included with the tear off. Let me show you. Okay, it says shingles and felt. It doesn't say siding and drip edge and all these other things. It doesn't say anything about the nails, and I think they mean that the nails are included, but I'm not charging for the nails. Say that again. So you get that? Like A bucket, throw it out the window. So what does B bucket mean? The B bucket response is, I'm not going to throw it out the window. No. Let's hash this out right now. Why? Because I've got the proof to back it up. I can make an easy case, right here with a photo of damage or with a code that says it's required or with something else, right? Like I've got reasoning, good logic, good proof, good justification, and we're hashing that out now. So no, bud, sorry. Nope, the reason why that has to be there is because of the damage to this and that, the code to this and that, and all of that is on page this and that. You see, I'm pointing them to the source of the proof, the data, the source that proves the justification. And so, that's great, Chad, but that's not always going to work. I mean, you can take that as far as it's going to go, but that'll work on some items and not the rest. You're exactly right, right? That'll work because I have the proof and the documentation. It'll work more times than not, more often than not. And that's why I need them to go through each and every individual line item with me, because I'm going to win that fight if we can get in that arena. Item by item, I'll win each item, right? Almost each item. Some items, no matter how much proof I give them, we're not going to pay for it. We're not paying for it, right? So you try to prove it with all that documentation you worked so hard to get, and still on some items, they said, we're not paying for it. Oh, okay, great. So let me give you an example. There is drip edge on the job, has to be replaced, and there's gutters. The gutters on this particular job are nailed through the drip edge, right? So we're gonna have to at least detach and reset the gutters, at the very least. We might have to replace them, but at the very least, we're gonna have to detach and reset the gutters. I've taken photos of that, I've proven it, but this numbnut adjuster doesn't get construction or something. You know what I mean? He doesn't get the 1 + 1 = 2. He doesn't get this basic common sense issue. But I'm just, maybe not the best example. I'm using it as an example just to illustrate something simple, okay? So Mr. Adjuster, he's like, why do you have that on there? We're not paying for that. I'm like, sir, we're gonna have to remove the gutter in order to get to the drip edge. The drip edge is required by code to replace it. We have to replace it. The nail goes to, you can't get to it without taking the gutter off, just basic common sense. He's like, no, I don't see it, I'm sorry. Or maybe the pictures weren't good enough to him. Or maybe he couldn't see the nails in the flashing, the holes in the flashing. Maybe he didn't agree with that, right? So now we move the item into the C bucket, okay? And what is the C bucket? Here's the C bucket. Okay, so Mr. Adjuster, I believe that's going to be required. Based on my experience, I think we're going to have to take that gutter off. Okay, nope, you're not. Okay, well, I believe what we're going to, but listen, my job is to do whatever is prescribed by you. The thing that I was hired to do is to perform all repairs that have been prescribed by you. You're the boss, you're in charge, you know what I mean? And so I'm contractually obligated to try to do it your way, okay? So here we go. Here's bucket C. It's like, sir, I don't think that's going to be possible. I think that's going to be required. I was hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the claim, right? However, I'm willing to remove it from the estimate at this time, because at this time, it's just an estimate. It's nothing more than a hypothetical at this point. It's not an actual, right? So at this time, I'm willing to go ahead and remove it from the estimate, as long as you're willing to revisit this issue when it's no longer hypothetical and it becomes an actual and where they're swinging hammers. However, I understand that if I were to ask you to review it at that time, I realize that I'm going to have to bring you more documentation and proof as to why. Fair enough? Okay, great. Because the answer is always going to be fair enough. The answer is always going to be fair enough. I mean, sometimes they're going to be like, I'll be like, okay, so do it back. I'm willing to try it your way. I'm willing to give it an old college try, right? You got to understand, this is all just an estimate. That's why we're supplementing before the build. It's not an actual. It's just a fantasy. Nobody knows what it's going to take. How I want to illustrate that is with your question earlier, the waste factor, okay? One of the most common things I get. They won't give me the ridge and the starter and the waste, or they won't give me enough waste, right? They only want to pay 5% on gable, 10% on hip, or they won't give me, I give them the manufacturer requirements and they say that's already included in the waste, the ridge and starter. No, it's not. You know what I mean? They're wrong. But I'm wrong too, because on my estimates, I might have like 18% waste and ridge and starter. I might have 22%. That's something really just ridiculous, right? Because I want to start higher and end up higher, right? But I'm wrong. And so are you, brother. Your waste factors are wrong too. Yours are wrong, yours are wrong. Everybody here's wrong. The adjuster's wrong, you're wrong, we're all wrong. Why are we wrong? Because we're having this argument at the wrong time. We don't know what the waste factor is going to be. You just think you do. Right? I mean, we could use like a sophisticated waste factor calculator and come real close, right? We could use the Eagle View breakdown page and we could come real close, but it's just an estimate. Don't you get it? It's just an estimate because it's before the build. We're always going to go through this process before we build. So we simply don't know what it's going to take until we build. We're not going to know the exact waste factor, the exact waste, the exact amount of starter and ridge until we build. Am I wrong about that?
How do you present that to them?
So how I present it is, okay, well, Mr. Adjuster, so what I have on here is I have 15% or whatever, and I have ridge and starter, and you don't like it. Which one do you want to take off? Which one do you want me to take off? It's up to you, Mr. Adjuster. Where do you want me to be at? You want me to go? You want me to take all the waste factor off? You know what I mean? I don't give a crap what you want me to do, because right now it's just an estimate. So what I would like for you to do, though, Mr. Adjuster, take it down to whatever you want to right now, because I expect you to pay for what it actually takes when we build. Because you'll do that, won't you? What do you think he's going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. All I got to do is prove how much and how do I do that? Dude, I've proven this with like an ABC invoice with the materials on it, which should never work, by the way. That should never work. You know what I mean? Like you could order materials and took them back, or it's materials on the wrong job, right? But it's documentation, my brother. It's documentation, and it's after the build. See, when it gets built, it's no longer an estimate, it's an invoice. It's no longer hypothetical, it's actual. What do they owe? Replacement cost value. Paid when what? Incurred. Zero resistance, zero friction. Remember the windows? I was setting myself up for a big, huge fight on the windows and doors. I was never going to get through that, but I decided not to have the fight. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I just choose not to have the waste factor fight. Where do you want me to be, Mr. Adjuster? Okay, great. That's where I'll be for now. I'm going to try to make that work, but I don't believe that's going to be possible. I do expect you to pay for what it actually takes, though, right? So we can revisit this later, right? And I understand I'm going to have to bring you documentation, right? Okay, great. And sometimes I'll be like, fair enough? And they'll be like, yeah, fair enough. And sometimes they'll be like, fair enough, but we're not going to pay for it then either. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, fine, but that's a fight for another day. Usually they're so willing to do that, man, to say fair enough and just let it go on, right? Because they're not the adjuster that's going to deal with that argument later, and they know it. You know what I mean? And maybe they are the adjuster. You have to deal with the same one, but that's a fight for another day. They're pushing off into another day. And they're trained to answer that. They cannot say no to that question. Like they can't. I mean, it's back to the adjuster and your client standing in the foyer by the front door. And the adjuster's like, okay, Mr. and Ms. Jones, I've done your inspection. Here's my estimate. You're going to get a check in the mail based on this, and here's how things work, and this is the depreciation, this is your deductible, right? And let me explain. If anything comes up during the job, just let us know, and we'll review it, and that's called a supplement. Oh. I mean, like, they have to do that, right? They're trained. The whole system is built for supplements. Like, they have to deal with stuff as they come up during the job, don't they? They must. And so, insert whatever item into bucket C, and let's hash it out. What do you want to do? Overhead and profit? Okay, here's overhead and profit. Ready? Here's overhead and profit. We don't want to pay for overhead and profit. It's not complex and doesn't require coordination, right? Not complex enough, okay? I remember I talked about early on about that water spot, my version of the water spot on the ceiling, and all the steps that I require. But before that, I talked about I'm inspecting every room, closet, hallway. So first I've got to find the water spot, right? I'm always going to find a water spot, like 9 times out of 10, in every inspection. That's why I do it. I love finding the water spot. Any water, size of a quarter, you know what I mean? The client, I'm the hero when I find the water spot, right? But I have to first find it, that way I can do the repairs on it. And when I do the repairs on it, I'm doing repairs the right way, which are a whole lot of items. That's now complex, and that requires a lot of coordination. So I told you, I'm not going to try for the 3 trades or other methods. I'm going to prove the complexity and the coordination. I'm making that sucker complex. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing it right and I'm finding it. It's not like I'm doing anything special to make it complex. But all the items that are required require the complexity, right? And the other thing is that interior work generally automatically will trigger overhead and profit, okay? Not necessarily on their first estimate, like they're offering it up to you, but when you ask for it, it's granted, you know what I mean? Because you have the interior work and you have to work around a client schedule, trades overlap, right? And so like the other thing is, anybody here use AccuLinks or Job Nimbus or anything like that? You guys are good. So a CRM system, sometimes with 50, 60 people, nobody raises their hand on the CRM. Like, are you kidding me? You know, like I need to get a hold of Job Nimbus or AccuLinks and see if they want to get involved in this effort, because we have a whole lot of people that need a CRM system. But my point is that on these CRM, all your activities being inputted all day long throughout. You know, it's like when you walk into a restaurant, everything's going in the computer. Everything, every order, everything, person clocks in, clocks out, turn on the electric, everything's in the computer. You know what I mean? Everything's controlled by the computer. So the more we can do that, the better. Like new appointments scheduled, right? New order, new client, check received, right? Anything, you know, like anything you do, new phone call, new email, new adjuster appointment, everything we're doing, input it into a CRM system throughout the day. Because in this regard, I want to prove the complexity, okay? So like I want to prove, think of it this way. What if you were in old school and you had a log book open in front of you, and on this job, everything that ever happened, you wrote down a log entry. For example, 11:42 a.m. Jimmy left the job to go to ABC to get a stick of drip edge. You know what I mean? September such and such, 1 o'clock, met with client to choose color sample, okay? So it's descriptive storytelling at the end of the day. Like if me and you go someplace and we go to Foxborough to watch a Patriots game, okay? That would be so cool because I've never been. I've seen it on TV, you know? Like, and if I went, I'd be talking the whole time about what we did when we were there. You may not talk as much. You might say, it was cool. This dude wouldn't shut up. You know what I mean? Like, but they had a great sandwich there and had a good time, had a couple beers. It was fun. You know, it was a good game, close game, whatever, you know? And like, you're just more short to the point. Me, I just talk. It took me like 30 minutes to tell my version of what we did there, right? And that's how it is with overhead and profit. You've got to be descriptive because I believe every job is complex. Just a little roof job, I think it's complex, but it's based on how you describe everything that took place. So what I'm talking about there with all that, that's the complexity. You can essentially export all activity from AccuLinks or Job Nimbus. It'll give you a report of all these things that happen where it'll come out like a log entry, right? That's going to prove the complexity part of it. The coordination part of it is a little bit easier, actually. Have you ever had an insurance company say, send me over your subcontractor invoices and we'll approve the overhead and profit? Everybody here, right? So when they ask that, do it, but redact the prices out. The prices are none of their business. That's not what they should be after. And sometimes when you do that, they're going to say, unredact the prices. And again, here comes my response again. Okay, because that's none of your business. All right, like I'm not going to ever send you my prices. That's none of your business. And I say, no, I'm not going to do that because I've seen too many of these yahoos. When you do that, they're going to try to bring their price down and try to prove your stuff as a bid item. You know, like we're just doing this stuff for free as charity. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work that way. Because by the way, there's a little bit off topic here. I'm going to go sideways here. But like, let's say you have an AC unit that needs to be replaced, and you know it needs to be replaced, right? Part of that is like if I wrote up an estimate for replacement, they're going to try to make me repair it first, right? So I kind of know that. So I'm going to hire an AC technician first to come out and make them charge me a trip charge, make them charge me for their minimum time frame, right? And an attempted repair, and then I'm going to have them draw up for me on their letterhead, you know, with their licensing, what's wrong with it, like it's not up to code or whatever, warranty, this and that, and what has to be done. I want them to write me up a bid of everything they have to do. So if they say that let's say their bid is $7,500, right? And it just says 3-ton unit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, dude, what else are we doing with that, okay? Like I get that the end result is $7,500 for a 3-ton unit, but can you do me a favor and get me all the scope items that goes into that? You don't have to give me a price for each and every, thing, but I want to know like the linear feet of the lining and the electrical involved, ductwork involved, hours, any extra parts. I want to know like what all is going to go into this job. You don't need to tell me how much each little part charges. I can live with the end result of $7,500, but I need the scope. So what I'm going to then do is I'm going to then translate that estimate into Xactimate. I'm going to rewrite it in Xactimate based on all the scope that they gave me. I'm going to do that because I believe I'm going to get like 10 grand. He's at $7,500, I'm going to get 10 grand, out of it. And if I do, I'm sending the Xactimate estimate and not the subcontractor invoice. You see what I mean? But what if I do that in Xactimate and I'm at 5 grand? His bid item's higher. Then I'm cool to go ahead and send on his bid item and share it with the adjuster. And at that point, that's the only time that I'm sharing prices of my subcontractor. Okay, so I did my side. I went down the side street, back on the main street. All right, where I was at was sometimes they'll ask you to send that over. When they do it. Redact out the prices because the point is you're not proving prices. You're just proving coordination. You're just proving that I had to hire a subcontractor to do this job. That's it.